The first time he came into my room, I thought it was a nightmare. Welcome to Ziddle Diaries, real stories, real drama, real pain. Please subscribe, you won't believe what's next. My name is Olivia, and I was only 12 when my mother's new boyfriend, Rick, moved into our apartment. He was tall, loud, and always smelled like beer. I didn't like him from the start, but Mom said he was just trying to help us. She said he was the reason we could finally pay rent on time. At first, Rick tried to act nice. He'd buy me small gifts, a chocolate bar, a cheap bracelet, and tell my mom how mature I was for my age. I remember the way Mom smiled when he said that. She looked proud, like I was lucky to have his attention. But the way he looked at me made my stomach twist. The first time it happened, it was late. I heard the floorboards creak, and the door slowly opened. I could smell his cologne mixed with beer before I even saw his face. He whispered my name, said he just wanted to check if I was asleep. I froze. Every muscle in my body locked up. When he sat on the edge of my bed, I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. When he finally left, I lay there shaking, staring at the wall until morning. I ran to my mom as soon as the sun came up. My voice trembled as I told her what he did. She blinked, looked confused for a second, and then her face hardened. "Olivia," she said, "you must have dreamed it. Rick wouldn't do something like that. He loves you like his own." I remember the way she said it, calm, certain, like I was the problem. Like I was lying. That night, I cried myself to sleep. But it didn't stop. Every night, I'd stare at my door, waiting for it to creak open again. Some nights he didn't come. Some nights he did. I started sleeping in my closet, just to feel like I could hide somewhere. I stopped telling my mom because every time I tried, she would snap at me. "Don't you dare try to ruin this for me, Olivia. Do you know how hard it is to find a man who stays?" That sentence broke me more than anything Rick ever did. School became my only safe place. But even there, I couldn't focus. My teachers said I looked tired all the time. My friends stopped asking me to hang out because I always said no. I didn't want anyone near me. I didn't want anyone to know what was happening at home. One afternoon, I came home early from school because I felt sick. I heard laughter coming from the kitchen. My mom and Rick were dancing, the radio playing old love songs. They looked so happy, like nothing was wrong. I wanted to scream at her, "How can you smile when you know what he's doing to me?" But I didn't say a word. I just went to my room, shut the door, and buried my face in my pillow. When I turned 14, I stopped trying to talk to her completely. She didn't want to hear it, and I was tired of begging her to believe me. Rick had taken everything, my peace, my sleep, my trust, and my mother had handed me to him on a silver plate. Sometimes, I'd see her glance at me when she thought I wasn't looking. Her eyes were cold. Like she knew, but didn't want to face it. I remember one night in particular, the night that changed something in me. Rick had been drinking again. I heard him fighting with my mom in the living room. He called her names, told her she was lucky he even stayed. Then, suddenly, the apartment went quiet. I thought maybe he left. But then my door opened. I begged him to stop, told him I'd scream, told him I'd tell the police. He just laughed and said, "Who's gonna believe you, kid? Your own mom doesn't." That line burned into my mind. It was true. After that night, something inside me went numb. I stopped crying. I stopped hoping she'd wake up and finally believe me. I just existed quiet, invisible, counting the days until I could leave that house. I didn't know it yet, but that numbness was what kept me alive. By the time I turned 16, I had learned how to pretend. I smiled when my mom asked how school was. I laughed when Rick made jokes at the dinner table. But inside, I was already planning my escape. Still, deep down, I wanted my mom to notice. To see the bruises. To hear the silence in my voice. To realize what she'd done by letting him stay. But she never did. And every time the floorboards creaked at night, I knew the nightmare wasn't over. It was just beginning. By the time I turned 16, our apartment didn't feel like a home anymore. It felt like a trap. Rick had slowly taken control of everything: the bills, the groceries, even my phone. He said it was for safety, but I knew it was just another way to make sure I couldn't reach anyone. He'd go through my backpack, check my texts, and once, he even followed me home from school without telling me. My mother didn't see any problem with it. She said, "He's just being protective, Olivia." That's what good men do. Good men. Those words made me sick. At school, I stopped talking to people. The teachers thought I was just shy, but I wasn't shy, I was scared. Scared that if I said too much, Rick would find out. Scared that if anyone called home, he'd punish me. Every night, I lay awake, listening to the clock tick, waiting to hear that slow, heavy sound of footsteps in the hallway. Sometimes he didn't come, and I'd feel a wave of relief that almost made me cry. But on the nights he did, it felt like dying a little bit more. I used to pray that my mother would wake up, that she'd hear something, anything, and finally see the truth. But even when I cried loud enough to wake the whole neighborhood, she never came. The next morning, she'd look at me with cold eyes and say, "You need to stop this drama, Olivia. You're trying to tear this family apart." That word, family, felt like a joke. One evening, I came home to find Rick sitting in the living room, flipping through an old photo album. He smiled when he saw me and said, "You are such a pretty little girl." Still are. My stomach turned. I walked past him without saying a word, but he grabbed my arm, not hard, just enough to remind me who was in control. "You should be nicer to me," he whispered. "I'm the only one keeping this house together." I pulled away and ran to my room. That was the night I locked my door for the first time, but it didn't matter. The lock was old, and he had a key. Some mornings, I'd wake up and see bruises on my arms or neck. I'd try to cover them with makeup or long sleeves. Once, my mother saw one and asked what happened. I told her the truth. She just sighed and said, "You're clumsy, Olivia. Always have been." That was the moment I stopped expecting anything from her. Rick started getting bolder. He'd touch me in the kitchen when she wasn't looking. He'd whisper things to me when she was in the shower. Once, at dinner, he looked me straight in the eyes while saying something sweet to my mom. I wanted to throw up. I remember one night, the worst one, when I ran to the bathroom and locked myself in. He banged on the door, shouting that I was disrespectful. My mother came out of her room, half asleep, and instead of helping me, she yelled, "Rick, stop. She's just being dramatic again." I sat there on the cold floor, shaking. I didn't know what hurt more, what he did to me, or the fact that she let him. After that night, I started counting the days until I turned 18. I thought maybe if I could survive that long, I could run away and never come back. But surviving started to feel impossible. Every little thing reminded me that I was trapped. The smell of his cologne in the hallway. The sound of his car pulling into the driveway. Even my mother's laughter, the one she used when he told jokes, felt like a betrayal. Sometimes, I'd catch her watching us. Not in a loving way, more like she was measuring the tension in the room. And every time she looked away, I realized something horrifying. She knew. She had to. Maybe she didn't want to admit it. Maybe she thought pretending would make it go away. But she knew. The day everything broke was a Sunday afternoon. Rick and my mom were arguing in the kitchen. I heard plates shatter, and then silence. I peeked through the door and saw him shove her against the counter. She didn't fight back. She just stood there, shaking, eyes blank. For the first time, I saw fear in her face. And for a second, I thought maybe finally she understood what it felt like. But when I tried to go to her, she pushed me away and said, "Go to your room, Olivia. You're making things worse." That night, I realized no one was coming to save me. Not my teachers. Not my friends. Not even my mother. If I wanted this to end, I had to save myself. I didn't know how yet. But deep down, something inside me, the part that refused to die, whispered that there had to be a way to make them see the truth. And that's when I started planning. The plan started small, almost like a whisper in my mind. I was 17, and every night felt like a fight to stay alive. I knew no one believed me. Not my mother. Not the teachers who thought I was moody. Not the neighbors who smiled politely but never looked too closely. So I decided if words didn't work, proof would. I still remember the night I made that choice. Rick had stumbled into my room again, reeking of alcohol, his voice slurred. When he left, I sat on the edge of my bed, shaking, holding my pillow like it could protect me. Then I looked at my old phone, the one he didn't know I still had, hidden inside a shoebox under my bed. It had a cracked screen, but the voice recorder still worked. That's when it hit me. I could record him. The next night, I tucked the phone under my pillow and pressed record before pretending to sleep. Every creak of the floor made my heart race. I thought he'd hear it, but he didn't. He came in like he always did, whispering, touching, saying things that made me want to disappear. The next morning, I played the audio back with my hands shaking. The sound of my own crying filled the room. I had to pause it. My stomach turned, and I almost deleted it right there. But then I thought of every time my mother called me a liar. Every time she said, "You're exaggerating." I kept the file. Named it Proof 1. That was the start. Over the next few weeks, I recorded everything, the threats, the yelling, even the quiet moments when he pretended to be a loving boyfriend in front of my mom. I hid the files in a secret folder, changing the names so he'd never notice. Sometimes I'd listen to them at night, just to remind myself that I wasn't crazy, that this was really happening. But keeping that secret felt like holding fire in my hands. Every time he looked at me, I was sure he knew. Every time my mom picked up my phone, I felt my chest tighten. Then one afternoon, everything almost fell apart. Rick came home early from work and found me in my room with the phone in my hand. I froze. He asked what I was doing. My mind went blank, but I forced a smile and said I was listening to music. He stared at me for a long moment, then walked away. That night, I moved all the recordings to a flash drive I'd found in my school bag. I hid it inside a loose tile under my bed. I couldn't sleep that night. I just stared at the ceiling, praying he'd never find it. A week later, things got worse. Rick and my mom got into another fight. This time, it was about money. I heard him call her useless, say she should be grateful he puts up with her brat of a daughter. My mom didn't defend me. She just cried. I don't know what came over me, but I started recording again, this time with my phone in my pocket. Every word, every insult, every threat. I wanted it all on record. That night, I knew I had enough. I copied everything onto my school flash drive and put it in my backpack. I planned to go straight to the police station after class the next day. I didn't sleep. I just kept thinking about what might happen when I told. Would they believe me? Would they call my mom? Would she hate me forever? But when I saw my reflection in the mirror the next morning, the dark circles under my eyes, the bruises I couldn't hide anymore, I knew it didn't matter. I couldn't keep living like this. At lunch, I left school quietly and walked to the nearest police station. My legs felt like they were going to give out. When I got there, the officer behind the counter looked at me like I was lost. I handed him the flash drive and said, "It's all on there. Please help me." They listened. For the first time, someone listened. By the next morning, Rick was arrested. My mom came home from work crying, saying they'd taken him in handcuffs. For a moment, I thought she'd finally see the truth. That she'd hug me and say she was sorry. But instead, she slapped me. "What have you done?" she screamed. "You ruined everything." Her words hit harder than her hand ever could. I ran to my room and locked the door. Outside, she kept yelling, saying he didn't deserve this, that I must have misunderstood, that I'd set him up. I slid down to the floor and cried until my chest hurt. I thought getting him arrested would set me free. But I was wrong. Because even with him gone, the house still felt haunted, not by him, but by her. The day of the trial was the coldest day of my life. Not because of the weather, but because of what I saw inside that courtroom. When I walked in, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the folder of evidence. I was 19 by then, old enough to face him, but I still felt like that terrified 12-year-old girl who used to hide in her closet at night. Rick sat at the defense table in a gray suit, his hair neatly combed like he hadn't ruined my entire childhood. He smiled when he saw me, that same disgusting smirk that used to make my stomach twist. For a second, I couldn't breathe. Then I saw my mother. She wasn't sitting beside me. She was sitting behind him. At first, I thought I was seeing things. My brain couldn't make sense of it. But then she looked at me not with shame, not with love, but with anger. Like I was the one who had done something wrong. I felt something break inside me. The judge called my name, and I took the stand. My voice trembled as I told them everything. I told them about the nights he came into my room, about how I begged my mother to help me, about how she told me I was lying. The courtroom was silent except for my voice and the sound of papers rustling. When they played the recordings, I couldn't look up. Hearing my own cries echo through the room made me want to disappear. But the officers and the jury listened carefully. Some of them looked angry. Some looked like they wanted to cry. For the first time in years, I saw people believe me. But my mother's face didn't change. She just sat there, arms crossed, glaring at me like I'd betrayed her. Then it was her turn to testify. She stood up, straightened her dress, and said in that calm, motherly voice I used to love, "My daughter has always had a wild imagination. She's been troubled since she was little. She used to make up stories for attention." My chest went tight. I couldn't move. "She's lying," my mother continued. "Rick would never hurt her. He's a good man. He treated her like his own child." The room spun. I gripped the edge of the table, trying to stay upright. The judge asked her if she'd heard the recordings. She said, "Anyone can fake a recording these days." Fake. That's what she called the nights I screamed for her. The nights I cried and she turned up the TV so she wouldn't hear me. The prosecutor asked her one last question. "Mrs. Johnson, are you saying your daughter made all this up?" My mother nodded. "Yes. She wants attention. She's trying to destroy our lives." Our lives. She said it like she and Rick were the victims. Like the man who broke me and the woman who let it happen were somehow the ones who deserved pity. When she stepped down from the stand, she walked past me without looking. But as she passed, she whispered, "You should be ashamed of yourself." I wanted to scream, to tell her that she should be ashamed. But I couldn't. My throat felt tight, my voice gone. I just sat there and let the tears fall quietly. Rick didn't testify. He didn't need to. He just watched me the entire time, like he was proud of what he'd done, proud that even after everything, he still had control over her. When the verdict finally came, it was like the world stopped moving. Guilty. Rick was sentenced to 15 years in prison. The courtroom gasped. My mother covered her mouth, crying, not tears of relief, but heartbreak. She reached out to him as the officers took him away, shouting, "I'll wait for you. I'll fix this." I'll never forget that moment. Watching her choose him again. Even when the truth was right in front of her. Even when every piece of evidence screamed what she refused to see. After the trial, the prosecutor told me I was brave. But I didn't feel brave. I felt empty. When I went home, the house was silent. My mother's things were gone. She had moved out to be closer to him, she said later in a voicemail I never returned. She told me one day I'd understand. But I never will. People always talk about monsters like they live under your bed or in the dark. But mine lived in my house, and the person who was supposed to protect me handed me over to him. It's been 4 years since the trial. I've moved to another city. I changed my name, started therapy, and I'm trying to build a new life. But some nights, I still wake up to the sound of the door creaking, my heart pounding. And sometimes, when I close my eyes, I can still hear my mother's voice on that stand, calling me a liar. He may be behind bars now, but the part of me that trusted my mother, that believed she'd protect me, died in that courtroom. And no sentence, no amount of justice, will ever bring that part back. Don't miss out. New videos every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you're always first to see the latest stories.